Welcome back to the Georgia Show. I am on scene in Beirut, Lebanon, on the ground, and we'll talk about why I'm here. But we're going to have a lot to talk about Georgia today, but also how that is connected internationally. I think you'll find it fascinating. So please excuse the noise, but this is the only good internet I could find at the local Starbucks. I'm not in a hotel, Bill, just so you know. So what do we got today, Bill, on the Georgia side?
So we're going to talk about the latest going on in Fulton County. They continue to just seem to do everything in their power to obfuscate the nature and the ability to get to their ballots. And we're going to cover that. We're going to cover some findings that have been made with regard to the No Kings protests and some of the organizations that we now know are receiving funding from some of the bad guys, and how that's tied into specific areas here in North Georgia. We'll also hear from Hank Sullivan. He has a new Substack coming out regarding, again, some strange maneuverings with regard to zoning powers here in Georgia. And we'll also hear about some other plans that he has going forward. I understand we have a report from you as well.
Yes, we will talk about why we are here and how that connects to the situation in Georgia and to humanity in general. And I just want to say a few things. We've talked a lot about conservative ink here on the show. We're not part of that club, but there are people who are in that club. And just so you know, they don't talk about certain things. So you see other shows trying to come up in Georgia, but they're not going to talk about certain things. That we'll just leave it at that. And also, please sign up for our no ad subscriptions, because this work takes a lot of money. It's expensive, and we're on the ground all over the world trying to bring to you at CDM exactly what you need to know. And you can help us by going to my.cdm.press, my.cdm.press, and sign up for our no ad subscriptions. It's very helpful as far as revenue for us. You get access to all 13 of our sites with no ads. So with that, Bill, I'm going to let you go through what we got.
Okay, sounds good. All right, as we said, the shenanigans continue in Fulton County. So a quick refresh on what we covered in our last show. Even the state election board here in Georgia seems to be working in some ways against the populace, and specifically trying to ensure that steps are taken to avoid anybody being able to see the ballots in Fulton County. Why? I don't know, but when people take steps like this, it would seem that they're doing it for a reason. So we reported during the week that Joe Rossi and others called for the chairman, Fervier, to resign from the state election board, and mounted evidence showing that he had text messages going back and forth between himself and another board member to apparently prevent that board member from attending and being able to vote to proceed with an investigation into Fulton County. No real response from Fervier. I guess we didn't expect one. It's like many of the other times that we've seen people challenged and they seem to ignore it. So that happened. And then look at this. Now, this is from one of our friends, Garland Favorito, head of Voter GA. During this week, the Fulton ballot hearing in front of Fulton court was abruptly canceled less than 24 hours before the judge had scheduled the hearing to take place. And this, in explanation, this hearing was about the same issue, getting the court to unseal and provide access and visibility to the Fulton County ballots that have now been sealed since the elections in 2020. The ballots were originally unsealed by court order in 2021, and yet consistently Georgia courts have taken steps to prevent people from actually looking at them, even though technically they were unsealed at that time. So in addition, the Georgia General Assembly passed legislation in 2024 to continually make ballots public record. Garland Favorito and Voter GA had issued an open records request asking the Fulton County Clerk, Shay Alexander, to fulfill that open records request and provide a copy of the 2020 ballots. failed to do so, consequently, this hearing. Then, at the last minute, the hearing is canceled. What does that sound like to you? That sounds like obfuscation. That sounds like people trying to block and prevent things from happening. Amazing at this stage, especially given the other moves that we've seen. Here is Liz Harrington. And again, we believe that Liz and a number of folks within the Trump administration and surrounding the administration have good eyes on Georgia and are paying attention to what is and isn't happening here. And I'm going to show you some more evidence of that in a couple of minutes. We asked that question last week. Is Trump and his team aware of what's going on in Georgia? I'm going to give you some things to think about before we finish this segment. Here is the post from Voter GA. I'm not going to read it, but you're welcome to read it at your leisure. It's up on X. You'll find it under Voter GA up on X. You can read this, but it essentially goes through what we just explained. And again, this week, Trump made some very interesting comments, almost as if in answer to our question, perhaps. Here comes the video.
It's very important for Georgia to get a real senator, because the senator they have now is a horrible senator. He allows all the crime, all the borders. You have open borders. I mean, his whole philosophy is a disaster. That's not representative of the people of Georgia. I know the people of Georgia. I won Georgia 3 times, but they say twice. Okay, I won it very big the last time, and I won it big the first time, and I won it big the second time. But we had criminals that didn't allow. I mean, I hope they're going to go into that. I hope they go into the votes which are being stored in Fulton County and take a real look at those votes, okay? Because I won it the second time too. But I know Georgia very well. I love Georgia. Those people are great, and they deserve a good senator, because the man they have now is a weak, ineffective person. Okay.
Mr. President.
Okay. I know the people of Georgia well, and I trust that when he says that, he means it. And I'm talking about all the people in Georgia that have worked now for 5 years to try to uncover what in the heck happened to the 2020 elections. And I'm confident that eyes are on. What else am I thinking about? Well, remember this. The Deputy Attorney General for the United States, Mr. Ed Martin, has seated a grand jury to look into the ballot situation regarding Fulton County. Now, this is not a trivial thing. A grand jury has near ultimate power across the U.S. to do what's needed to investigate and go after wrongdoing. So this is very interesting. But perhaps more importantly, in a very interesting post that goes back to August, Mr. Martin has been posting pictures of himself and various people and things almost each day, and he'll say something like, "Good morning, America. How y'all doing?" Or "How are you doing?" Well, one of those posts was this, and in this he says, "Found this remarkable portrait of Robert Fulton, the first man to produce a commercially successful steamboat. Many U.S. Counties, cities, and towns are named after this brilliant engineer."
That's fascinating, Bill. I didn't see that catch. Good one, man.
Do you think that he just randomly walked by a painting and said, "Hey, let's take a picture of this"? I don't think so. So when you're questioning, do we have Trump's team on our 6? I think we do. So keep that in mind as things come up and cause you question. So that's it for that particular subject. I know, Todd, you had news from Beirut. Let's go ahead and hear that if we can, and then maybe we'll take a break right after that and cover something else.
Sure, that's fine. And by the way, the Georgia GOP came out and condemned the judge for canceling that hearing, correct? Or was that not done?
They may have. I didn't. If it is, I may have not seen it. The Georgia GOP seems to have a problem with my email address from time to time.
Yeah.
And
yeah.
I didn't see it. Doesn't mean it didn't happen. I'll close the loop on that. We'll cover it in perhaps either late this show or next show.
Excellent. So I'm in Beirut to work on the protection of Christianity in the Middle East, but this is a global issue. We've been in Armenia, we've been in Beirut, we've been in Ukraine. But what you'll see is there are internationally funded organizations who are all over the Middle East, but also in the United States and also down at the local level in Georgia. And let me just first start with this. We put out this morning, the Pashinyan government in Armenia recently arrested 16 priests, and this morning requested 21 priests to come into the investigative committee for charges. They're also trying to seize the head of the, sorry about the noise, the head of the Armenian church in Echmiadzin, which is their ancient kind of Vatican city. So their globalist government is attacking the church in Armenia. This is the same Armenian Prime Minister Pashinyan who was in the White House with Trump for the peace treaty with Azerbaijan. And we want to make sure Trump knows, which I'm sure he does, who he's dealing with here. So that is also going on in Beirut. And I'll just bring up this. This is something that we talked about weeks ago that Steve Bannon is now putting on his show, calling for the Christian state of Jerusalem to be established. And you can go on cdm.press and find this. And if you scroll down, let me just do that. You will see Steve talking about a Christian state in the Middle East to protect Christians. I'm in Lebanon, which is like literally the original Christian state. It's being sliced up and destroyed for a reason. And now I want to connect this to the U.S. Bill, we're going to talk about Indivisible, which is a group that is all over the United States and funded, we think, internationally and by international figures to essentially oppose the MAGA movement and bring in globalism in the U.S. down at the local level. They're behind a lot of the ICE protests and all of the other stuff that's gone on. We have a really good writer in Connecticut who runs our Connecticut paper who has been all over this group called Indivisible, which Bill's going to talk about and go into. But they have been active in local communities everywhere. And you need to be aware of them and how they're operating in Georgia. And again, this is connected internationally. What you need to understand that there is a global movement to destroy Christianity, to destroy Western society, which is a byproduct and a way of life off of that belief system. And they're having success all around the world. A little bit stopped in the US because people are becoming aware. So we're at the point where either we're going to go one way or the other, the bright future that Christ wanted us to enjoy on this planet, or something else which is very dark and 1,000 years of darkness, maybe. So that's what we're doing here. We're going to be meeting with leaders of the one of the largest Christian parties here, one of the most powerful Christian parties, the Free Patriotic Movement, on how we can all join together and protect Christianity in Lebanon, in the Middle East, in the United States, in Western civilization, and even globally. So that's what I had to say, Bill. Back to you.
All right, that's wonderful. Thank you, Todd. Why don't we take a break? We'll enjoy a couple of our sponsors' messages and then come back and we'll continue on with something from one of the counties here in Georgia.
Here we go. We'll take a break, pay some bills.
I'm David Cross, and you may know me from my election integrity work, but I also own U.S. Asset Management, an investment advisory practice. I've been an advisor for nearly 30 years, and one of the questions I get asked most frequently is, do I have enough money relative to other people my age? And while that's an interesting question, it's also the wrong question. The right question is do you have enough money to sustain your lifestyle for the rest of your life? This is a question you should know the answer to. This is what we do. Check us out at us-am.com and look for our big, proud American Eagle logo.
If you haven't noticed, gold has reached a new high, all-time highs actually, and keeps going up every day. Why is that? It's because precious metals are a long-time historical store of value. And if you own a portfolio and you have assets in the fiat currencies, i.e. stocks, bonds, cash, or whatever, you're vulnerable to hyperinflation, which is coming as our debt explodes another trillion every 90 days. It's really scary. So how do you protect yourself? Go to Advisor Metals. If you look on any of our cdm.press sites, about halfway down, there's an ad for Advisor Metals. Click on it, fill out the form for your contact info, and Ira Bishotsky will contact you and talk to you. It's an easy conversation. There's no sales pitch. He's completely verified by us. He has a regulatory background we've checked into. We've checked with his bankers. We've checked with his IRA custodians for metals, and we can highly recommend Advisor Metals and Ira. So go to Advisor Metals. If you call them directly, tell them we sent you at CDM, and he'll definitely take care of you. But protect your portfolio because you really need to. It's coming. Thank you.
I'm a naturopathic doctor. We are in the world of medicine very acquainted with many modalities, but probably the one most familiar with everybody would be two things: homeopathy and herbals or herbs, maybe some nutrients too, vitamins, minerals, that kind of thing. Now, we do know a lot about the drugs because we have to find out what drug you're taking affects you and what nutrient it depletes you of, because most every drug pharmacy product will deplete something. So we have been trained and we have a database that we can check into that says this is going to take your B12 away. The pharmaceutical company cannot patent organic substances made by the body. You're not born short of Advil. You're not born short of Ritalin.
Yeah.
You can be born short of insulin, right? The answers to staying healthy and keeping away from even SARS or any of those things getting into you is staying healthy. You and I get sick because our terrain gets out of balance. Well, that's the same thing in the soil. You and I are made from this thing called dirt. And when we get out of balance, we have the same thing happen. Weeds start to grow in our body. Right? And that's what we want in our body. We want nutrients that we don't understand how to get well enough yet because our suppliers are lacking knowledge on nutrient density foods.
So this is what drove you to develop this, was your knowledge of this, right?
Right. You know that.
Okay, back to you, Bill.
All right, hang on a second. Let me get us queued up here. All right. So in the last couple shows, we have spent a lot of time talking about the movements, quote unquote, the protests that we see going on around the country, and the fact that these are fomented, they're created, they are funded. We saw the hearing before Trump and a number of the officials by people that had and are investigating this and tracking down the money, tracking down the people, and reporting where this is coming from. This is being funded by some of the most notorious people that we've heard of who are working against America. And let me show you a post from Anna Paulina Luna. This goes back a few days. We showed it in one of the last broadcasts. But in it, she says, she's being sarcastic here. The No Kings protest was completely organic. Don't let anyone tell you otherwise. And then she posts a spreadsheet showing the funding sources for dozens of these organizations, not just one or two. And this parallels exactly what was reported to President Trump in the hearing last week or the week before. This is what they are calling Riot Inc. And it is designed to do exactly what's going on. There are posts, we're not going to show them today, but there are posts coming out from Nick Sorter, from and from others, other on-the-ground reporters in Washington, Portland, Chicago, showing supplies and locations being used by Antifa and some of these other organizations to create what looks like an organic protest, but it's not. It is made up of people that are being organized to do these things. And we have found this happening right here in Georgia. Now, the extent of the organization, we're going to let you decide, but here's one of the organizations that we're going to focus on. Indivisible, and you can hear it referred to as Indivisible or Indivisible Civics. The formal name, as most of these are, is a corporation called Indivisible Civics, Inc. More than nearly $6 million is flowing into this organization. $5 million of it is coming from George Soros. $830,000 is coming from Tides. And there's another 107 grand coming from Arabella. What did we hear in the briefing in front of Trump last week that we reported? The same names: Arabella, Soros, Tides, and others. And there's a number of others. This spreadsheet, were we to scan back and show you the totals, is nearly $300 million going to these organizations that are meant to try to break down confidence in the people that are trying to change our country for the better. The folks that are fighting illegal immigration, the folks that are fighting crime. And, it isn't fun. We said months ago, we might have to go through some difficult times in order to solve these problems, but that's what we're going to have to do. We have to accept if we want a better America and back to, the America that everybody dreams of: safe, family-oriented, and hopefully a faith-based country. So why is this so important? Well, let's take a look at indivisible as it relates directly to Georgia. Here is a group that is apparently associated with indivisible, Georgia's 6th district. Now, I believe this photo was taken before the redistricting, in which case 6th district would have encompassed Forsyth County and parts of, I think, 6 other counties around the area. There's a person circled in the middle. We're going to explain who that is in just a minute, but her name is Anita Tucker. And we're going to show her involvement both with indivisible and with other activities in direct alignment with what we're seeing around the country. Here's Anita Tucker being reported as one of the organizers for the People's March, again, here in Forsyth County. And look at what comment is made right there from her regarding other people that are attending this, as well as our friends from Indivisible North Metro. And then they always wrap around nice words around these things to celebrate unity and collective, blah, blah, blah. It's all meant to make it seem like a good thing when all it is trying to undercut the good work that's being done all across the country. Here are some posts from Anita Tucker's Facebook. And by the way, it's been placed up on the Internet Archive now, so we don't have to worry about these somehow magically disappearing. You can see in the upper left-hand corner a number of posts that she's made. I picked out just 2. I think there's more that identify indivisible, but one calls Tulsi Gabbard is a threat to our national security. Really, a threat to our national security. Tulsi Gabbard's the one who came out and said they had found evidence of the ability and potential tampering in our election voting systems. And I believe she named the Dominion voting system, but specifically systems. And look at who created this meme, indivisible. Look at the photo on the right. JFK Jr.'s policies would jeopardize public health and undermine efforts to protect our communities from preventable diseases and health crises. Keep in mind, it's RFK that has identified that chronic disease in America is the highest in the world in many cases and has continued to increase despite the fact that we spend more in the U.S. on healthcare than any other country on the planet. In addition, he just got through revealing that something simple that we probably didn't look at up to now, Tylenol, acetaminophen, may be one of the causes behind autism. Autism that at one point in the 70s afflicted 1 out of 10,000 children and is now up to 1 in 34, I believe. And in some populations, specifically boys, and I think in California, it may be down to 1 in 12. This is what she calls in this case, somebody that would jeopardize public health and undermine efforts to protect our communities. Is that really what's going on? Doesn't seem so. Here's why we're so concerned about Ms. Tucker's involvement in these organizations. She occupies a seat on the Forsyth County Board of Voter Registrations and Elections today. Now, this lists 3 of them. Barbara Luth, who's the chairperson, Joel Nat, made famous by many of our previous reports. We'll go into that probably again in a few days. And now Anita Tucker, a Democrat who sits on the same board. Why is
So
this?
what you're saying, Bill, is that there's a Soros appointee on the board of the voter registrations, essentially. She works for a Soros organization.
Certainly Soros influenced, at least in so far as she's working with an organization that receives what we just saw is nearly $6 million in funding from Soros, Tides, and Arabella. And she's sitting on the board of registrations and elections in Forsyth County. Clearly,
Amazing.
that does not make me comfortable. Now, here's the other thing. We also found out, with the help of Hank Sullivan, who will be on with us in just a moment, we found out that she was also involved in these No Kings protests that happened here in Forsyth County. Here's a picture of somebody holding signs during one of these protests. Here's more. I take particular exception with "Keep the immigrants, deport the racists." It seems remarkable for anybody to say that. I'm going to show you why in just a moment. Immigrants make America great. Oh, do they? Really? Would you say that to the family of Laken Riley, the young lady killed by having her head crushed by an illegal alien? Shouldn't have been here in the first place. Should have been in jail for some of the things that he had done previously, and is now charged with her murder. Immigrants make America great. I don't think so. At least not the bad guys. And in order to get the bad guys out of here, we have to address it. So think about Laken Riley's face when somebody says that, and I think we'll get a better sense of truth in the middle of all this. So my suspicion is there will be a lot of people asking very direct, very hard questions regarding the voter registration and elections board in Forsyth County, and I think those are well warranted. Here are the executive directors of Indivisible, so that we don't neglect to identify them. Lee Greenberg and Ezra Levin, executive directors of Indivisible, I believe here in Georgia. So, a troubling report, to say the least.
That's fascinating, Bill, because you've outed, as you said, some of the nefarious behavior of Joel Nat. So you've got 2 out of 3 for sure that are, at least their agendas may not be aligned with ours, put it that way.
That's true. Keep in mind, there's 5 people that sit on the board. I just happened to pick 3 so that it would be more visible and readable for the audience. But there are 2 others that sit on the board. We were lucky enough to have a new Republican assigned to a Republican seat recently, and we hope that will help move that organization in a better direction. So we have Hank Sullivan up in just a moment. Did we want to take another break, or shall we bring him in?
Yeah, sure. I'll just run a couple ads. We'll get these out of the way, and we'll be done for the day. And we can stay with Hank the rest of the show. Here we go.
Very good.
Well, in the case of hydroxychloroquine and ivermectin, these are 2 medications that have been FDA approved for use in humans for decades. They are very, very inexpensive. Interestingly, available over the counter in almost every other country other than the US and Canada. You can just walk into a pharmacy and buy them like we buy Tylenol in much of the world because they're that safe. And we've known for decades that ivermectin has very strong antiviral properties. It has anti-inflammatory properties, and both ivermectin and hydroxychloroquine are what we call zinc ionophores. They help to move zinc from the bloodstream into the cell, which is where it needs to be in order to fight off a virus. So lots of application for these, and we have every reason to believe that those drugs also will likely have some efficacy against H5N1 or a number of other respiratory viruses that we may meet down the road.
The wait is finally over. My towels are back in stock, but not for long. Get a 6-piece My Towel set, regular $69.98, now only $39.98. Towels that actually work. What a concept. And that's not all. Check out our My Pillow bed sheets, only $29.88. Any color, any style, any size, even kings, regular $119.98, now only $29.88. And how about our limited edition premium My Pillows, made with Giza cotton and a designer gusset, made exclusively for you to thank you for all your support. Queens $17.98, Kings only $19.98. So go to mypillow.com or call the number on your screen. Use your promo code to get My Towels for $39.98, My Pillow bed sheets only $29.88, and our limited edition My Pillow Queens $17.98 and Kings only $19.98. Quantities won't last long, so order now.
Okay, Bill, you're up.
All right, very good. Well, our next guest is Hank Sullivan. Let me go ahead and bring him in. And Mr. Sullivan, thank you for making time for us today, sir.
Oh, I'm glad to be here. Hey, Todd.
So I know you're a
How you
humble
doing,
guy.
Hank?
I know you're a humble guy, Hank. So let me tee up something. I want to make sure people understand. Now, after watching your writings and research for going on 5 years, and I know you've been doing it a lot longer than that. It is amazing how you're able to look at political doings, people's actions or lack of actions, the laws, the change in laws, ordinances, the maneuverings of some of these political creatures, and be able to discern what some of the underlying agenda might be that others might miss. And so I know you've worked on something that you're bringing out literally today, and so we're happy and thankful that you were able to make time to join us. So with that, tell us the latest, my friend.
All right. Well, the latest, I used to be a geopolitical guy. I never really messed with like local issues too much. I was too busy trying to understand what was going on in the broader picture of the world. But here in the past 2 years, I suppose, I've become so focused on what's happening right around me that what I discovered is that what's happening in the world is really what's happening at our homes too. And so when it's that close to you, I think it's really important for people to react to it. And if everybody reacts to it in where they live, then maybe we can take care of the broader picture of things that are happening in this world as well. So our county commission in Forsyth County, Georgia, has become, in my opinion, increasingly tyrannical, and to the extent that I personally came to a decision that I can no longer just write about this, that it's important for the people that do have maybe the wherewithal or the understanding of what's happening, and I believe I do, to actually take control of circumstances to the extent that we're able to. And so I decided to go ahead and run for our county commission here in Forsyth County. We have a primary coming up in May of 2026, and I will be on the ballot. And my purpose there is to constrain the growth of what I call tyranny, which is automatic when you grow government, because government becomes an increasingly a tool of control over the people, and it shouldn't be that way. Government should service the people. Government should welcome the people into their auspices and help them to get done what it is that they're trying to get done in their lives. But that's not what happens here in my county. And I'm talking to people all over America practically, and they're all seeing the same kind of things. So we've got to bring this back to a certain center that is appropriate for what our founders gave us. And that is a government that works of, by, and for the people, and not of, by, and for the government. And that's what I'm doing. So the latest usurpation by the Forsyth County government, maybe not the latest, but a huge move that they made was back in August, and they took a measure they enacted a groundbreaking ordinance to terminate property rights associated with grandfathered businesses and land uses. Now, what that means is that when the government, such as Forsyth County in the year 2000, they adopted a Unified Development Code, the UDC. And when they did, it affected the zonings of any number of parcels that are already being used in ways that really kind of defy their new zoning. So rightly so, those businesses and perhaps even residential uses were grandfathered in. So you can't make somebody change the square footage of their home, say if a new zoning calls for a higher square footage. So they have to be grandfathered in. But the big thing we're talking about here today are businesses. So these businesses, some of these businesses are over a century old. And so the Forsyth County government is trying to phase out these older land uses for these businesses. And so they came up with a way to try to do that. They empowered the county attorney to write an ordinance that gives them like a trigger by which it would create a set of events and a deadline for these events to happen. And if, say, this doesn't happen in that amount of time, then all of a sudden a business loses its land use. And so in particular, what they decided to do was to empower the county planning and zoning, planning and development department under one individual who's the director. His name happens to be Tom Brown. That if they, using their own opinion, determine that a particular business is using its property, its land, outside of that which has been specifically grandfathered in, say in the year 2000. So it's been a quarter century since that business may be operating under the UDC, then they can issue a citation. The citation then has an 18-month trigger on it, or a time frame on it, that if, say, the business does not do anything for 18 months, then automatically that business's grandfathered land use is terminated. Secondly, if they do decide to say appeal this, they're given one appeal, and that's with our zoning board of appeals, where they can take their case and say, look, we've been operating this business here since 1925, and yeah, we may move something around on the yard over here or something like that, but the business is the same. The business hasn't changed any. Well, they can make these arguments to the zoning board of appeals, but if the zoning board of appeals says, I'm sorry, we don't agree with you, then the only recourse that a business like that would have after being turned down by the zoning board of appeals would be to take them to Superior Court. Well, Superior Court is based here in the county, and it has county politicians that they're called judges that are in place there. And so they would have to convince the Superior Court of their case. And if they don't, then they lose their land use. And if they lose their land use, then they're forced to sell the property or change their business over to something that is allowed under the new whatever zoning that applies now. So this is an onerous use of the power of government. And I say it's gratuitous because there's really nothing that's forcing this into place. This is something that the Forsyth County Board of Commissioners has determined that it just wants to do. It wants to phase out any of these grandfathered land uses, which there's no way for me to know how many acres of land and how many businesses are affected by this. But this is not a good use of government. The government is not there to take people's livelihoods away. And any of these businesses, they all have employees, they all have bills to pay, and they'd be forcing them into bankruptcy. In many cases, they'd also be forcing them to set up somewhere else. Well, look, their buy-in on the land, say 50, 60 years ago, was peanuts compared to a buy-in on land today. So if they tried to relocate from one property where they've been established for all these years and go to somewhere else, the numbers don't work for something like that. So
hey, Hank, let me jump in there, because this is nationally, this is going on. This is in Connecticut, where the state just took over local zoning laws. And look at what they're doing. This is a neighborhood, and they just decided to put up a multi-family dense housing to bring in migrants in this wealthy town. This is what Georgia is facing, and people need to realize this is an agenda that's happening across the country. Back to you.
Yes, generally speaking, that, and Bill knows this as well, that when we notice something going on here, it's also going on in parallel fashion practically everywhere. But I'll say this, apparently this is the first time any jurisdiction like a county government in Georgia has exercised these powers. And one of the big reasons, I believe, you talked about the state taking over zoning in Connecticut. Well, down here, that's still left with the county. So in Connecticut, there's a state authority that's creating the laws that allow that to happen. Well, here in Georgia, at least now, there are no statutes that are empowering our county governments to act like this. And that's why, from what I understand, Forsyth County is the only one to be able to take that has taken these kinds of steps. There are no other counties in the state of Georgia, and there are 158 other counties in the state of Georgia who have never ventured into this kind of tyranny over the local businesses in their county. And so when that happens, then when Forsyth County did that, they had to rely on some source of authority, because all of the county ordinances, they're empowered by state law. Either state law empowers them to specifically do things, or it'll give them a range of things that they can do. But state law has never empowered this. So the will of the people of Georgia has never stood up and said, this is a proper role of government. No, what they've done, apparently, is that they have relied upon certain court cases, independent court cases with their own set of facts, their own set of circumstances, their own set of politics locally, and individual judges' decisions. And those decisions have been empowered simply by other court cases from around the country that are written into a compendium. So if you want to change the law somewhere and you want to do something like this, then evidently they think that all you have to do is look up some similar court cases that might happen in Connecticut or Massachusetts or Vermont or something like that, and then say, okay, because they did it here, we can do it. Because they did it there, we can do that here. And so the authority for this ordinance is strictly been taken from isolated judge opinions. They're not decisions, they're opinions in various cases, possibly in the nether reaches of Georgia, that are basing their authority on other opinions by other courts in other states. So this is so flimsy, it's not even funny that there is no authority legislated in the official code of Georgia that would allow this to happen.
So I have a couple of questions. Let me begin with this. This is not the first time that the County Commission of Forsyth County has done some odd decisions, and you've written about several of them. One of the most egregious that I think most people are beginning to hear about and may not know really the full facts is this amazing decision to build a building for supposedly for the use of the county commission, spend $50 million on this building. And it turns
Well,
out the location of this building is outside the county seat. Now, according to Georgia codes, you must, if you're going to hold a vote in a county commission, it has to be held within the county seat. The intention, I believe, is to allow participation and attendance by the public so they can see what's going on. This building has been built outside the county seat, and the decision to build it was made even though members of the county commission knew full well that it could not be used without some sort of accommodations, special accommodations, for the purpose that they were saying that it was being built for. That and also $150 million building. Now, there's about 250,000 people, maybe slightly over, that live in Forsyth County. That means that building costs the populace of Forsyth in one form or another more than, I believe, $5 for every living human in the county of Forsyth.
Well,
I mean, it's an amazing amount.
Yeah, the way that I look at it is, what did it cost a family of four? And the figure is actually $140 million and counting, because they're adding to it obviously as they go. But $140 million, and you divide that by 280,000 people, then say a family of four, allocate that to a family of four, that's $2,000 for each family of four to have to pay for this building out there. The biggest problem I have with that is that through all history in Forsyth County, any major decision like that to build an infrastructure type of a building has always been sent to the people in the form of a referendum, so that the people could decide. The county, if they feel like they need something and it's going to cost $140 million, then you need to put that before a vote. And that's what happened with the last administration building in 1995. And that was only $4.6 million. Even with only $4.6 million, we had what really were conservative Republicans that were running the county commission, even though you might call them Democrats, but they're actually conservatives. They would never have taken this authority on themselves. No more. At this point, we have Republicans that call themselves conservatives, but they're nothing but big spending government officials that if they can't spend money on it, they're not happy. And so get this, 3 out of 5 county commissioners are the ones who made the decision to spend $140 million of the people's money without any input from the people on that. And that's just egregious. 2 out of 5 said no. So this is an albatross around the necks of those 3. And one of those 3 is my opponent in May in this primary. And whoever wins the primary is going to be the next county commissioner, because there's not too many Democrats in the northern part of Forsyth County, and certainly not enough to steer the election one way or the other.
So having that as a characterization of the county commission, and knowing that this change that you began the discussion with got made, I think you said in August, do you have a working theory of what they must have an agenda for this? There must be a reason beneath it. Do you have a feeling of what that may be?
Well, I will say this. Maybe I'll say a couple of things, but I will say this. I wrote a Substack, and actually it was a podcast more than anything, a few weeks back, where I'm asking the question, who is really running Forsyth County? And the reason I'm asking that is because these decisions are not that these people are making are not what I would call in the public interest. They seem to be more in the interest of maybe private interests So if you can control, say, the zonings on properties into the future, and you know how a property is going to be zoned in the future, and you can get out in front of that, then there's ways to potentially profit by that. We all recognize that. But in this particular case, this ordinance is just so technical in the way that they've done this, that it kind of reinforces for me that there's somebody else pulling the strings here, because I don't think that there are any of these county commissioners who could have actually come up with this on their own. That tells me that something else is going on in this county that maybe the people don't know about. At least it raises that suspicion.
It does. Todd, did
Once again, Hank, once again, we see this from the local level all the way up to the international level. You've got leaders of countries who are not acting in the best interest of their people. Also governors, also head of parties, on down the list. This is, a lot of them are just actors. They're put into place to do something. And I think this is one of those. Back to you, Bill.
Yeah. So Hank, you've mentioned that you've taken the decision to actually run for county commission, something that I'm sure people have been urging you to do for quite some time. Talk to us a little bit about, this seems like a daunting challenge given what you've just described. There's clearly, it feels like there's forces behind the scenes here that are going to have to be dealt with, and you're going to have to face up. Tell us what your plans are, if you can, and how people can learn more, especially between now and May, and how they can, if they choose, help. So please.
Well, thank you. I think I have a unique position in this because I have sort of a built-in audience already going into it, and I have my Substack that I put out, and I get any number of thousands of readers every time I put one out. And I believe that as time goes out, that number is even going to grow. And so my main way of marketing this is to keep pushing out the truth, to keep pushing out what I'm finding out, and at the same time draw a distinction between my opponent, who's on the county commission, and what I would do instead of that. And so, for example, in the case of this particular zoning and the tendency of, say, the county commission to act in a way that I believe is virtually tyrannical. They have no authority. See, our founding fathers believed that the use of power without authority, that's the definition of tyranny. And it's all laced throughout the Declaration of Independence. And so that's exactly the machination that's happening right here. They don't have the authority to do this, but they do it anyway. Well, that's a usurpation of the people's authority. That authority is retained with the people. So part of the battle is just recognizing what say your opponents are doing. And if you don't recognize it, then you don't have an argument to make. Well, I recognize that. And I'm good at making those arguments. And so I'm going to keep those arguments out in front of the people. But one of the things that really helps is if the people out there recognize that, hey, I'm not doing this for me. I don't need this. If I take office in 2026, I'll be 71 years old. So I don't need this. I'm not building a resume. I'm not trying to get rich. I'm not trying for power. There's nothing about this that makes me want to do this, except this is the home I've lived in for the last 40 years. And I've seen this gone from a one-horse town to what it is today. And I see the tyranny involved with county government. It's got to be pared back. It's got to go back to the people. The people have got to be served by this government and not controlled by this government. And that's why I'm doing this. I have no other reason other than to try to give this government back to the people in the best way that I possibly can. And it's always been prudent to me, the truth, that the way you do that is you shine light on it. You shine light on what these people are doing. And when the population understands that, then they will respond. But if people do want to help me, I will graciously accept your help. All you have to do is go to votehanksullivan.com, votehanksullivan.com, spell Vote Hank Sullivan as one word.com, and you'll have the opportunity to help me. And if you do, I will be eternally grateful for me to try to help you get your rights back in this county. That's all. That's what this whole thing is all about.
That's great. You know, it's ironic that so much of what we hear from the Trump administration, but also of the problems around the country, have come. Unfortunately, we see them coming to roost here in Georgia, and I don't think it's I don't think it's happenstance. I don't think it's coincidence. There is something here that, for one reason or another, the problems are resident in Georgia. You and others have heard me refer to it as we are the epicenter of many of these problems. And I think, to your point, this is the first county to try this. And if they get that brilliant light shined on them, that would be one of the most important things people can do now to try to make sure that this does not proceed. Hopefully it can be stopped everywhere, but hopefully it can be walked back, perhaps even in Forsyth County. Yes.
If I have a chance to say this, I think I would be remiss if I didn't, to appeal to those businesses around the county who might be in the position that their land use has been grandfathered in. Just know that you need an advocate on this county commission, because they will take your property from you. They'll force you to sell your property and discontinue your operations if you don't take the bull by the horn. Well, I am that advocate. I'm the one who's drawn this attention to this. I'm the one that's putting this out there. I'm the one who's staking this claim that we need to fix this, that this is not right, and that businesses who've been operating this county from before zoning changes were made need to be able to operate there. They can't even improve their properties, guys. They can't get a building permit on these properties to say upgrade a building that's maybe falling under disrepair. They can't get a permit because they don't have the proper zoning. So part of this is that they're allowing all of this to decay over time. So eventually all of this will change and it'll conform to the land uses that the people down there on this commission want those properties to conform to. And it's just not right.
It isn't. Hank, thank you so much for being with us. I am sure we're going to hear more in the coming months about what's going on in Forsyth and your run. Todd, did you have any last things for Hank?
No, Hank, thanks. Really enjoyed that. That was eye-opening, and it brought it to the national level. So thank you.
That's great.
Appreciate it, guys.
All right. Todd, when will we see you next on the skiff and so forth?
We'll be here in Beirut, Lebanon all week. I'll be on tomorrow at 10 a.m. to noon Eastern, Monday through Friday. And we may have some breaking news as well on cdm.press. So put us in your daily scan. Thanks, guys.
That's great. And we'll be back on Wednesday evening at 7 p.m. with the next Georgia show. And earlier, if something is very important to bring to you. So thank you so much. We appreciate everybody being here.